Welcome. This is the January 22nd OpenZFS production user call. We have myself, Eva, Andrew, Steve, Mark, Dan, Stu, Greg, and Alexander. And Dan, it sounds like you had a recent experience since last week on deleting 50,000 snapshots. What did you learn?
So was it last week that we talked about the number of snapshots? Was it only just that recently? I
Uh,
seem to think it skipped a week, but
Maybe it
maybe.
skipped a week, but it was up. I think at the time you asked about 20,000 and we worked our way up from there. So it sounds like you've discovered something.
So I discovered that deleting 50,000 snapshots off a single file system can bring the system to its knees, at least on FreeBSD 14.1 on a Z pool with 3 pairs of 12 terabyte hard drives. Um, after the after that meeting 1 or 2 weeks ago, I started to think, okay, this system has 60,000 snapshots. Where are they? And I quickly discovered that about 58,000 of them were on one file system. And it's a file system that has a ZFS send receive on it. And this is the receiving side. So the snapshots were being created on the send and then never being tidied up on the receive. And my traditional way for deleting these snapshots is just get a list of the snapshots, feed it over to Xargs, and delete them one by one. But I happened to read the man page before doing this and found out that there is a way of saying ZFS, what is it? ZFS destroy file system ampersand snapshot 1% snapshot 2. And so I tried that. And it ran for about 3.5 hours. I was deleting about 3,000 snapshots, which represents about a month's worth of snapshots. And during that time, monitoring died for the host. I couldn't monitor anything file system related on the host. I could run IOStat, but I couldn't do anything file system related like ZFS lists or anything like that. Um, I think the host was otherwise operating properly because no errors occurred, say, on any other jails running on this host, but monitoring just had a big gap.
The ZFS commands hanging during that kind of large snapshot deletion is consistent with what I've seen.
Good.
So there is a notion of asynchronous destroy, but is that strictly a data set or is it also snapshots? And Dan, did the command line return to you or did it just lock up captively doing it?
No, if I when I went to run one of those commands, it just stayed it never came back to a command prompt.
Ah, good to know. Okay.
And so I did control T's, and what it told me was RRL pointer RR underscore CV. So it was waiting for something. So then I went back. I tried one more like that, and it had another long outage. Now I say outage, but it's not actually an outage if you understand my meaning. And then after that, I went back to get a list of snapshots, Xargs minus N1 sudo ZFS destroy. And that ran for hours and hours. That took 3.5 hours, but the system was very usable. How many commands was that? About 3,000 again. But the system was perfectly usable during that time period. I ran btop, which is a very nice little graphical output type thing on the command line, and that ran. So took me 2 different days to get it done. But I eventually did get it done. It wasn't, I think I'm going to be doing it with Xargs from now on because it takes longer but the system is normal
Good
otherwise.
point. Now, a few questions.
Xargs is typically what I use, but I need to do bulk deletions as well.
I blame my reading the man page. Don't do that.
What were you thinking reading documentation?
I'm sorry. Michael, what were you going to say?
We'll take your nerd card away for that.
Yeah.
Ba-dum-bum. So the percentage shorthand, if you will, did it help with nesting, or is it purely within one data set? Because
Purely within one data set.
Okay, so the slow operation was in fact the percentage on one data set as opposed to anything to do with nesting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There was no nesting. Everything was just on one data set.
I remember
All
from
of this-
yesterday's or last week's conversation that nesting may have played a role in it, but maybe not.
No.
Well, and the other day it was the nesting thing was me, and that's just
Yeah.
how I end up with as many as I end up with that need deleted. Because it causes it to the number of snapshots to scale rather rapidly when you're nesting recursive snapshots like that. The one thing that I'm thinking is different here when you're doing it through Xargs, and honestly, this doesn't matter for anything related to deleting snapshots. It's deleting the snapshots as a number of independent operations. If you're doing them the way you're doing them, it's probably deleting them as an atomic operation, which, like I said, doesn't matter for anything, but it's probably causing locks to be held until it's completely done.
Oh.
I'm not certain on that. I don't know the code that well, but that is what it sounds like to me.
Well, I eventually got them all removed and then configured Sanoid on this host for auto snapshot equals no and auto prune equals yes. So it now maintains the snapshots on this host, on that file set for me. So this situation should not be happening again.
What fun is that?
I'd also be interested to see what it's like with 0-bit length snapshots in addition to ones that have data in it.
Yeah.
To see if that's a similar response time with the snap percent.
The total amount of space freed up was about 6.3 terabytes out of all those snapshots. So they pretty much all had.
I'm thinking more from a ZFS processing side. If it's the overhead is the same for deleting a 0-length snapshot versus a populated snapshot.
That's easy to test though, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be. And if you made me take a bet on it, I would bet that it is the same. Because it seems to me that all you're doing is manipulating metadata at that point. In either case.
Yep.
Agreed. It's just one of those data points that on the same system would be fantastic to have.
Absolutely.
Well, I seem to have a lot of free time on my hand this weekend. You never know.
Got it. So nesting was not an issue, but I do see how if you get your sequence right, you could use Xargs for nested data sets, just walk away and let it essentially go one by one, which simultaneously takes longer and may not take as long because it's not locking things up. Hard to say. I'm guessing longer, but
it takes longer. It doesn't. It takes longer, but there's basically no lock time on it. You know, you can keep using the system without any kind of problem. You can continue to do CFS lists. It doesn't hang up things. And yeah, I have done that all the time. It's not because it's easy.
I will take a look at the features on this pool. Pool get all. Because grep feature. I recall it being very specifically an async destroy, which was a nice feature, but if it doesn't apply to snapshots, that might need a little love. Oh, the very first feature, async destroy. So that is worth investigating.
Reading this from?
Zpool get all on my pool name of my NAS. So that's the feature at async destroy. I do recall it arriving. I never dug into like precisely when and where it doesn't apply. So what I'm hearing from you is that async destroy is not handling that percent syntax shorthand for a range of snapshots. If you don't get your command prompt back, is my observation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. The command, sorry, when you were asking about do I get the command prompt back, I was referring to when I ran other commands while the destroy was going on.
In the same shell or a different one?
Different shell, different SSH session.
So if you did the ZFS destroy dataset, pool dataset, snapshot 1 through 3000, just
it did not come back to the command prompt.
It should have under async destroy, but I guess it doesn't apply. And that's the science that's taking place right now. Interesting. Cool. Thank you for going sciencey on that. And I've linked the blog post there. That is awesome. Other questions and experiences that people have bumped into, because this happens. I mean, we have enough leg room on systems that you can get tens of thousands of, be it empty snapshots, be it nested snapshots, be it big ones, be it all the above at once, etc. Cool. Thank you, Dan. And again, the link is at the top there. And yes, it was last week, and that's
seems a lot longer ago.
Hey, well, waiting for all those snapshots to destroy it felt like probably ages. Other topics that have popped into people's heads since we started, and Ava, have you returned with coffee? Because those are related, believe it or not. Well, I will give some context.
She held up coffee.
Oh, good.
Yeah. The coffee is here.
Thank you,
Coffee's
Zoom.
not finished, but yeah.
Sent your image off, and I just have people's names. There you are. Got Mark and Eva. So we met about half an hour early to discuss a topic that we brought up collectively a week or two ago. And if I can scroll, you can scroll. Come on. So I have this fever dream of a tool, perhaps known as DTrace to FIO, which would follow the pattern of blktrace to FIO, where various folks are using the Linux blktrace feature to trace a workload, be it while you're just sharing your web server, your database, you name it, and then producing a FIO workload that intends to reproduce that in a vaguely faithful way. Now, while FIO is a workload simulator, finding super helpful caches of profiles has been, for me, challenging over the years, although the examples are quite good. They're not as clean and simple as one I very recently found, which is where someone just said, let me find that. And I'll drop the doc in the chat for now. And Alexander, Mr. Documentation, you've mentioned a point of when to mention synchronous goodies. So yes, let's get to that in a sec. This is on paper what I want to see as a result. It was elegant insofar as this person who naturally I've never heard of just stepped forward with a list of workloads. SMB, mail, file server, web. It's like, yes, that they get it. They may not be very, I cannot say if they're good implementations or not, but that's exactly the notion of, okay, we want to simulate an SMB server doing stuff, some amount of
SMB stuff.
Stuff, exactly. Which by the way, the Tuesday call was a very good dive into Samba in jails, so check that out. That said, description, SMB workload for folder copy and file server. Okay, I'll bite. libaio. Oh, globals.file. Is that his or an upstream one? Needs to be investigated. His or hers or
No, it's
theirs.
right there. It's
Oh.
actually right there in
Oh,
the
yeah, thank you.
list there.
Yes. Oh, you have eyes too? Yeah, sweet. You're good. You're better at this than me. Copy,
Occasionally.
jobs, block size 128K versus Stonewall. Ooh, I want to know what that means. So that maybe this repo is the answer in that regard, but what if you have a very, oddball, nifty new video, say workload from Stu, and Stu is thinking, oh, well, we need to test this on this new candidate hardware. Let's just slurp out the workload and push it back in. So that said, one of the most inspirational things I saw was I believe, a post in Chinese that translated well enough. So let's go. And earlier today, we were identifying the sources of truth for Open DTrace, which is apparently a thing. It sounds like a BSD licensed DTrace for Linux, not mentioning Windows at this time. These are all links I found in simply GitHub putting in, I believe, FIO workload, and just out came things like, oh, storage vendor N has this workload. Now, where is it? Naturally, Brendan Gregg is one of our great sources of truth. I hope you all have his books on the topics. Now, blktrace, where is my canonical article? So, I'm going to randomly grab this last one because that's ringing a bell. FIO replay, blktrace. Come on. So, show of hands, especially Dan and Mark, believe it or not, who has emerged as our we FreeBSD hat moment people of who is the DTrace person? At times, there was very much George Neville Neal, and various folks have used it as much as they needed to for the task at hand. But that was one question of exactly where, say, FreeBSD and arguably, hey, Alumos and say OmniOS are at with DTrace, and DTrace Conf just took place, so that's great. So we're kind of chiseling away at the DTrace angle. But here was the Chinese blog post on blktrace and FIO. So let's see, blktrace, open one terminal. So anyway, that inspired some of this, but I, for one, am not on Linux, and that raises a question: what does the blktrace set of hooks look like to the DTrace one? Are they largely similar? Are they completely different? And any numbers you get out of them will not fundamentally apply to another FIO simulation. So there's the net we're kind of casting here. Somewhat related, there is a SNEA solid state storage performance test suite, the SSSPTS standard. And I do have some installations that still boot for a FreeBSD 12 and 13 implementation of Nix fork of it. Although I recall it being very PHP heavy and hiding the heavy lifting among a whole bunch of PHP because it uses the PHP to produce super pretty output forms, which is great, but anyway. Oh, Stu, you can't ditch the moment we're getting to the heavy lifting, but yes, okay, so Stu's stepping away. So out of one of the OpenZFS developer summits, there were very simple questions. Okay, so what just workloads can we all point to and just say, hey, this is the vaguely official OpenZFS Samba thing workload that if we're showing off our OS, showing off our storage product based on OpenZFS, fine, where are they? So it's difficult at this very moment to say if this is a stunningly simple challenge or a stunningly complex challenge. I, for one, am not very good at DTrace. I can get the exec tracing to show all commands, which is ridiculously useful to run. And that said, those on FreeBSD have dwatch from Devin Teskey. And if that is on Illumos, go ahead and check it out. It's a superset of DTrace that makes it a little more user-friendly. I had forgotten how that may want to play into this. Let's see, I'm going to hijack a tab here and do dwatch DTrace storage. Storage, and just see if something comes up. Classic DTrace one-liners, and we'll look at the dwatch manual page. So, oh, and of course, dwatch. If it's on Illumos, that is fantastic. If not, you may want to see if there's a short path to getting it there. This is not an official manual page, but let's take a look. Blocks of, I'm guessing, text, storage, disk, I/O. Okay. There's a profile I/O that uses what am I looking at? No, a VA loan. No, I don't need a VA loan. No, I'm good. So anyway, there are some opportunities there. If I jump on the same system, man, dwatch, I believe it's in base, then look for I/O, which shows up in the word option a whole bunch. Here we go. There's a profile I/O, which uses DTrace for I/O. So anyway, this is kind of breaking news. We're back to our desks after the holidays, and it's one of the projects we just wanted to knock into some shape. And DTrace I/O to FIO. Sure, let's go there. DTrace I/O for FIO. Maybe someone's done it. I know there are a lot of clever people out there. They are wonderful. Maybe they're at the table here. Oh, there's one single result, which is a repeat of the manual page. Okay, so that all painted out there. And Alexander, you've dropped a little image. What you got? Oh, Alexander joins the. Oh, you're working on a patch for the asynchronous destroy. Yeah, so do verify that it's accurate. Good work, good work.
Well, that's you guys are the experts. I'm asking you.
Okay. Yeah. We don't have any developers present at the very moment, but that's the kind of thing that Rob Norris and Alan Jude and friends can answer. So do you think you'll punch that into review, a FreeBSD review, and we can go from there? Or a pull request for OpenZFS and the proper folks will look at it upstream?
Yeah, I would have to send it to OpenZFS, but I might drop this image to Alan Jude and see if it's acceptable to him. I was hoping for Dan's input on it, that it was acceptable to Dan before I went any further.
Well, let's see if there's a magical way for me to select the image, drop it into the document that's being shared and all that. So, okay, there I see it somewhere. Copy. Going back to the previous topic. So I hope you're all digesting what I've just laid on you there, but let's go look at the doc and see if I can punch it in there. Be good, computer. Can we live the dream? Yes, we're living the dream. Okay. I'll make that smaller. Attempt to make that smaller. And I'll attempt again to make that smaller. There we go. Okay, so you are saying the given snapshots are destroyed immediately if and only if the commandos are asynchronously destroyed immediately if and only if. And is that the if referring to the feature I mentioned? The pool feature?
I only added the synchronously.
So what's the rest of the sentence here?
So they say, let me walk back to my desk.
Okay, and I guess I have manual pages too, go figure.
They say The given snapshots are destroyed immediately if and only if the ZFS destroy command without the D option would have destroyed it. Such immediate destruction would occur, for example, if the snapshot had no clones and the user initiated reference count were 0. That's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll drop it in there. ZFS. Oh, perfect. It's one little section. I'll drop it in the text. And so the D option. Oh, Dan, do you recall using or not using the D option?
I'm positive I did not.
But then does the D request? Okay, without a D, I would.
There is no -D anywhere in my blog.
Okay, and the D is doing the asynchronous we want, or going to traditional pre-asynchronous behavior as we try to parse what's going on here. So the given snapshot is destroyed immediately. If and if notice would have, this is a very strange way of putting it. So Alexander, that whole section might need a little love.
I do not have enough goodwill with the ZFS developers to start doing that kind of work.
Understood. All involved on the call, hey, this is potentially confusing, so let's at least explain it to ourselves, which would be a great start. So the given snapshots are destroyed immediately if and only if the blah, blah, blah command without the -D would have destroyed it. Sorry, I've been working on a SNIA doc this earlier today. This whole would have throws me, but that's perhaps my own failing. Such
it throws me as well.
Would occur, for example, if the snapshot had no clones and the user initiated reference count 0. Like, yeah. And what do you mean reference count? That sounds like a developer thing as opposed to a user thing, which is immediately introducing it as. So, this needs love. I will run it by some folks. Go ahead.
It does need some love. If I understood it very, very well, then I might attempt it. But basically, last time I tried to change the content, they were like, "Hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this is extremely bike sheddable, and I don't want to touch it." And so it's like, okay.
Okay, I detect a wetware issue. So that said, your diff was to change to sync and async, but I think there's more going on than meets the eye. Let me take one more look at your. Gee, it's not a photo editor, so I can't chop off this top. I can't chop off this bottom. You proposed are destroyed, synchronously destroyed. Maybe I'll slip that word in there as a proposal. Are.
If I understand correctly, that like just tersely with one word says like, hey, it puts a lock before and after.
Yeah. Okay. Of the many users present, does anyone have some insights on how to interpret that handy documentation? I do not like this whole if and only if without. That's just no. Either use it in positive, positive, positive to make it clear, or negative, negative, negative. But what comes off to me is just kind of a mix. Anyway.
Yeah, I would not have the and only if. I would just say immediately if the ZFS destroy command without the D option would have destroyed it. That's.
What's this whole would have? I mean, so what test determines the havability? Anyway.
I interpret that to mean that if you would need to use the D flag in order to destroy it, then this command doesn't work. But that is the command. So that's very challenging for me as well.
And looking, while I have the manual page still open on another screen, I'm going to get the exact text for the dash D. It is the given snapshot. Given snapshot of the dash D option. Yeah, there it's just kind of self-referential, but let's see if they spell it out. Oh, destroy immediately. Okay, here we go. Thank you, manual page. Pro tip, if you put it at the very end here, it should grab the formatting, saving a bunch of trips to the menu. Okay, destroy immediately. If a snapshot cannot be destroyed now, mark it for deferred destruction.
Okay,
Deferred as in
D is
asynchronous?
defer. Not so much asynchronous, I think. I think deferred deletion means that it's in a state where the files or the file system there still exists up until such time as there's nothing accessing it, at which point it will then delete. I believe that's what that means.
That makes sense because ZFS destroy it would just destroy it if nothing's going on.
Yeah, but a dash D won't destroy if there's a hold, if there's something accessing it. There's a couple of conditions where it can't. It can't destroy it. So I think dash D puts it to where the next time you're able to, it's telling the ZFS next time you're able to, go ahead and delete this.
Interesting. Yeah, knowing those criteria seems kind of important. And I say that given the story of a Proxmox server where they destroyed the VM that happened to be their mail server, the OS and all the GUI stuff let them do it, and it just held on to it for like 9 months with 6 months retention until they rebooted it and everything vanished in an instant. So yeah, administrators need to know those criteria.
That one
That
is
would be
much
bad.
easier to fix.
Well,
So I must wonder if, a D was used or not used, and then precisely what are the implications? Anyway. Cool. Any other observations, thoughts there? I will say it can't be too clear. How about that?
the documentation can never be too clear.
Correct. Okay. We did a little pivot from tracing. If no one else is excited about that as much as Eva and I are, no worries. We will just continue to collect the facts. For example, hey, does DWatch work on Lumos? And simple little things there. And heck, for that matter, does DWatch work on, say, Mac OS or Windows, which are other DTrace platforms? So I will make a note there. Does or could DWatch work? No, not watch, DWatch. I really meant that. Work on non-FreeBSD DTrace platforms. Show of hands or grunts. Has anyone used DTrace outside of an Illumos-derived OS or FreeBSD? Be it OpenDTrace on Linux, be it on Mac OS, believe it or not, or even Windows. Heck, I think NetBSD might have it. So, like ZFS, I think there's a very good use case for DTrace making its way into the field as far as any other nifty technology that people should have to make their lives easier. That's a highly biased statement, but I'm sticking to it. And the fact that people are on this call means, hey, at least of those two, ZFS is getting some traction. Any objections to hijacking the periodic OpenZFS call for DTrace, especially if we can bring in a guest?
A couple of thoughts before we do, though.
Please.
As far as the dash D thing goes,
Yes.
while looking in the man page on one of my Lumos machines, it's
Yes.
supported. I've never used it, and I am not going to start because I don't like the idea of things in a state where they're going to disappear at some point in the future, and I don't know when. If I want it to disappear now, I'm going to go through and figure out what's holding it and make it disappear now. If it's something that I want to wait for it to disappear, I will wait until it's whatever that state is ready to be resolved. So I don't.
So is it a force or what? What?
It's not. It's not a force. It's more like a wait until the situation, whatever the situation that's preventing it resolves, and then delete it. So it's kind of
Okay,
queuing
yeah.
up. At least
Yeah.
that's how I read it. I don't like leaving things in a queue like that to go away. It makes me nervous. I don't like it.
Yeah, and should you reboot, it's like, well, does it then free up and commit it, or does it start happening after reboot, after you've done some other stuff on the system?
It'll depend on
On
why.
hardware, maybe? It's like, yeah, exactly. So those
If it's
criteria
if it's
sound
for
important.
example a hold, then no, the hold will still be there.
Oh,
If
as in
it's
a hold in ZFS terms, not just
yeah,
an application
ZFS
being
hold.
busy. Yes, bingo. Okay. Hmm.
If it's an application that's somehow accessing it, then yes, I would free it up.
Okay.
So I don't like doing that personally.
Amen. I hear you. There must have been a very specific use case one afternoon that prompted this this
I mean,
feature. Like, oh,
I know
wait,
what the use
a
case
thing
is. I
in the thing. Yeah.
understand it. The use case is the situation where you've got one of those. You want to acknowledge that yes, we're going to be deleting, and as soon as it's ready, we want to delete it. Something like a snapshot rotation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you have a hold on a snapshot, and so once the hold is released, then you want it to go ahead and clean up automatically, just like your rotation scripts would have done. I think that's the use case for it.
Okay.
I just don't like it. I would rather clean it up myself. And also, if you're doing recursive snapshots, to do holds using a D I believe would cause the previous ones to go ahead and delete while the one held one would just be in that weird state rather than holding the entire tree like that.
Another potential complexity may be if you look at the second paragraph right below the one I was trying to edit. I read that to seem to imply that it will use -D if it can't. I don't know what's going on there. I've never tried to destroy anything that wasn't destroyable.
Oh. And I'll throw in, I was about to say, going full circle to Dan's issue, is this anything about immediacy and asynchronicity equally applicable to file systems volumes and snapshots? Because maybe it behaves differently. And if Dan didn't get his command prompt back immediately, it's like, well, that's different. And I'm sure it's a totally different code path. So here we are. Alexander, not to step on your point, just there are, I think, some nuances here that aren't obvious.
I think there's a lot really not obvious here with this. This is not something I'm going to start using because there's too much here I'm afraid to be surprised by.
Andrew, Alexander, I didn't mean to lay that out, but I'm now having my eyes open to a bunch of things here. So, did you adequately make your point?
No, yeah. That's. I think we've all kind of been round robining on like, wow, there's a lot. It's like it's becoming increasingly obvious how much is not obvious about this. I'm wondering if I should file an issue, but they have 1.4 thousand issues already in the issue tracker. Just like file an issue or maybe look for one and say, hey, we were on the production ZFS call today, and what's going on with this?
Yeah, then let's reach out to individuals initially, just so we don't, as you put it, bike shed it or anything. But it may be on their chat, like, hey, who's most familiar with the destroy behavior? Because it's turning out to be almost out of our just naive use of it, a bit of a tip of an iceberg. with
Well,
some
I mean, if you can get a
ramification.
question to Richard Helling.
Yeah, he's
I'm-
definitely available.
I'm doing a test right now trying to delete 3,000 empty snapshots, and ZFS list is stuck at the command line. Oh, there it's back.
Okay. And
Jump
you
back.
synthetically created those for the test?
Yes, and
For
it
all of
took
us? You're very
about
kind. Thank
40
you.
seconds to delete those 30,000 snapshots. Sorry, 3,000 snapshots.
So that sounds similar to the other ones before that we were talking about.
The time before, no, was vastly different. The time before to delete 3,000 snapshots. Just let me look at the blog
Oh, I
post.
thought the time before you were deleting something like 60,000.
Well, no, I was deleting them 3,000 at a time,
Ah, okay.
and it
Gotcha.
would take hours.
And
I
so
didn't.
3,000 new empty snapshots, correct?
Yes, took 39 seconds to delete in comparison.
39 seconds, and you did or you didn't get your command prompt back?
I didn't. No, the command prompt stayed there until it was done.
Yeah, okay, so that gets back to my concern about the whole notion of asynchronous destroy. Well, what exactly does it apply to and what does it not apply to? And it's sounding like it doesn't apply to snapshots.
For
Cool.
interest's sake, it takes about 6 minutes to create those snapshots.
Interesting.
Really?
Yep. Yep. Individually. Jot 3,000 xargs, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay. So
Okay, yeah.
these are administrative operations. Is that the correct term? And such operations have locking that other operations don't have. Question. Oh,
Well, if you're using something, I don't know Jot that well, but if it was something like xargs, you end up almost all of that time is probably in the forks. Because each time xarg runs, it's got to restart the program from the beginning.
which is helpful at keeping your system responsive for individual deletions, but it also
Absolutely.
exactly. So it's like, well, when do you want that? There are times you do.
I'm just saying that that very well could be why it took longer for creation than
Sure.
deletion, is
Oh,
because
totally.
the deletion is sitting in kernel mode for the entire time as a single operation.
Whereas the create is in and out, in and out, and in and out. I'm running ZFS snapshot 3,000 times.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Dan, when you just did this 39-second test, was that with the % shorthand
Yes.
or with xargs?
Yes. No, it was with
Got it.
percent.
Thank you. Using the shorthand. Oh, I think it's called shorthand, but I could be wrong. Okay, syntax.
I would call it shorthand.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to try 60,000 now and see what happens.
Go, go, go. Oh, wait, sorry.
I mean, maybe it's got a faster way to deal with the because it's a special, like the zero size is a special case. Maybe I'm not sure.
Legit question.
Well, going on past experience, it takes, this is 20 times as long, so 20 times 8, 160 minutes, an hour and a half to do this create.
Oh boy.
I'll come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah, and note that you
sounds
can
good.
a great way to cheat is with a malloc based or tempfs based, whatever memory device. So it's a block device, you throw a simple pool on it.
Yeah.
And then those operations at least are not hardware bound. They're just closer to, hey, what are the algorithms doing through locking, et cetera, blah, 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 to impact the performance.
Yeah.
Going full circle to synthetic devices and tracing. Eva, did you want to help pitch this whole notion, or shall we just geek out amongst ourselves?
Oh, I think we can probably just take it a bit non-formal at the moment and see
Nope.
where we go.
Cool. Happy to. But if anyone is interested in this broader topic, please, please, please reach out. If you've got a secret repo of cross-platform DTrace scripts, don't hold back, please, because we're all kind of at the mercy of the canonical papers, then the presentation, and then random blog posts, and yeah. So, yeah. Yes, Andrew.
I've also been having some more experience with Proxmox's setup.
Do tell.
And they have moved to create, probably at the behest of absolutely everyone who is getting off of VMware, a kind of over-management system for multiple Proxmox clusters at this point.
Yes.
It's still kind of an alpha thing, but the big thing that it gives from my perspective is to be able to do migrations between clusters. What I've noticed though is that if I've got snapshots on things, it won't move them, which is surprising to me because I know, in a purely ZFS environment, it doesn't care. So I don't know why they're putting that limitation in there. I just thought I would bring that up and report it.
Interesting. Well, I do see how if you're thinking, oh, I need to urgently move this VM, why would anyone consider bringing its entire snapshot history with it? But maybe that's highly desirable. It's hard to say.
Well, it's desirable. I was going to say it's desirable from that perspective. It's also desirable from the perspective of being able to do an incremental move. So I put something at a remote location. Now I want to update it. I'm sorry, I cut someone off.
Wait, Stu, you had something?
Yeah, it's fine. Templates are the same limitation. You can't template a image or a Proxmox image if it's got a snapshot on it.
Okay. I haven't messed with templates, so it's probably basically an extension of that then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, because the clones, Proxmox's clones are basically taking that same function as template is.
Okay. Well, since they're using ZFS, I thought I would bring it up and extend my experiences here.
Yes, please. And VM Beehive very much uses the snapshots as a way to say, hey, do 3 snapshots before migrating and migrate and punch go. So it's like, how do they know enough to be dangerous? Go ahead. I heard Stu maybe.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet from command line. That's just UI driven. But that's on my list of stuff to see if I can clone it that way with snapshots in place.
But if anybody's messing with Proxmox, ZFS and Proxmox, this is they have released this thing in alpha. They call it Datacenter Manager. So it's out there if anybody wants to mess with it.
The biggest thing for it, the proponent of it, or the argument for it. God, I need some sleep.
Take care, Mark. Stay warm. Go ahead, Stu.
Is being able to do migrations outside of individual clusters.
Yes, that's exactly why I put it on.
Because building having exactly the same devices to be able to build clusters on is highly unlikely.
Yeah, being able to migrate an image between clusters is exactly what I'm using it for.
Great minds think alike, my friend.
Now, if you're using it for that, the thing you have to it doesn't list it as when you do a migrate, there is an option, migrate but don't delete original. And unfortunately, it locks that. So you do have to SSH into it and unlock it. There's already been a bug report. They say it's by design.
Unlock it for further use or deletion or what?
unlock it for anything. They lo
Okay.
it locks it. I can't. You can't
Locked is
migrate it
locked.
again.
Okay.
You can't. You can't turn the VM back on. You can't do anything. And
Alrighty.
their logic for that is that they're afraid that you're going to start it up on whatever the other machine is. It's going to have a matching MAC address, and so you bring it up here, and now you've got a MAC conflict.
And maybe even split brain yourself. Okay, so we've got a post. Thank you, Greg,
That's
for
why
that.
you want to use it with Cloud Init.
That would be a good reason for that. I'm using it just to transfer an image that I'm cloning to make the other one, so it gets a new MAC address when it gets cloned.
Yep.
But there have been a number of people who have brought that up, and it needs to be more, and they need to listen.
So, Andrew, given that you've been an integral part of the Beehive discussions for years, what is it that Proxmox is fundamentally doing that you can't do on your current OS of choice with Beehive?
I need an we're using Proxmox for UDS because it's got the integration for it. And as far as I'm concerned, it's an interim solution until I can get to where I can run Beehive on a Lumos and integrate with it.
And UDS is which acronym?
I don't remember what it stands for. It's just a virtual desktop solution
Ah, okay.
that is relatively platform agnostic. So we've been talking to those guys, and they already support like a dozen different platforms, and so they're open to adding another.
Was that the digital cable or something like that?
Virtual cable, yes, that's their product.
Virtual cable. Got it. Thank you. Okay, cool. Not to change subjects again. Here's the roadmap for their data center manager. Okay, virtual cable. Other topics, questions, ideas, fun stuff. It's your call, not mine. Alexander, have you spent much time in CFS related documentation or just kind of bumped into it periodically?
The only two ones I tried to do, the first one resulted in an unsuccessful patch, which they were like, hey, we're not going to close this, but we don't like it. And I'm like, well, I don't want you to not like it. I'll close it. And then the other one was actually when Dan posted that thing about ZFS destroy, I went and opened up the man page and looked at that. He posted it in the FreeBSD community Discord, and I saw, oh, there's a slight formatting typo here, and that's a thing that I could probably, get a little bit of goodwill and make it easier. So I kind of want, everything that's part of FreeBSD, I want to help with. That's the scope that I want to look at. But ZFS is extremely complicated.
It is, and it's cross-platform, and heaven forbid certain things be a little different on others. I haven't heard of terrible stories, but it could way hypothetically happen. Especially as I believe NetBSD is following, and Lumos are following traditional pre-open ZFS from Open Solaris, and call it what you will, but not to be confused with Oracle ZFS, which is a proprietary fork of, never mind. Anyway, cool. Of the action items, Eva and I have a tracing, decrypting, getting just a good description of the destruction behavior is probably wise, because that could influence both documentation and people's workflows. Because hopefully people are like, oh my gosh, I want -D, or oh my gosh, I never ever want -D. So let's hopefully get those facts. Curious where dwatch will and will not run, and
everything I learn. Sorry.
Yeah, please. No.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, don't be. This is your call, not mine.
Everything I learn, I put in the man page, or try to get it put in the man page. And ZFS is especially tantalizing because there are plenty of people who do not respect us, but they do respect Proxmox. So there's that. It's like commits to ZFS are very tantalizing from a perspective of a young man.
I see. Well, that aside, I hope people aren't thinking that Proxmox invented ZFS. That would be a painful misunderstanding. Like, oh yeah, cool. So, and I get it. Proxmox is getting a lot of attention. Yeah. I'll save
Started
any
on my
of
list
these
of
for the
complaints.
virtualization call. Go. What's that? I'll let you jump in with your complaints instead of mine, which might be on the Beehive call. Go ahead.
No, Dad, don't get me started on them. It's not good.
Understood. So, anything else, or shall we call it good at, exactly an hour? That's tempting. Andrew, you had the floor. Would you like the honors?
Like and subscribe.
Thank you, everybody. Catch you perhaps tomorrow for the Beehive call. I'm looking for time UTC. It is 10, so 20. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Take care. I'll be around a few minutes. Bye.
Have a good day, guys. Bye.